Hey, everybody, welcome back to Reason and Theology. Your host, Michael. On a Friday, I want to talk about Jay Dyer's war on the Orthodox Church in America, which he recently proclaimed in a YouTube stream. Um, I want to go over this because I think that there are some things that he discusses that shows that, the grass isn't really greener in the Orthodox world. There's a lot of people who are Catholics who are dissatisfied with what's going on in the Catholic Church, and they start looking for greener pastures. And they often think Eastern Orthodoxy is the place to go. And there will be plenty of Jay Dyer followers online who will tell them, yeah, come over here to Eastern Orthodoxy. And in fact, as we're going to see from Jay himself, well, you know what? The grass isn't necessarily greener on the other side. So, this is something to be aware of. If you are a Catholic and you're discerning Eastern Orthodoxy, or you're a Protestant and you're discerning between Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy and you're confused by what's going on in the church, keep this stuff in mind. By the way, speaking of which, I want to tell y'all about my free ebook, Church Chaos. You can get it again for free. Just simply go to reasonandtheology.com and you'll see a pop-up that comes up with that little image right here, Church Chaos. Simply click on it, put in your email address, and you will get it right away. Free ebook, and it will tell you about what's going on in the Catholic Church as far as the crisis, why this is happening, and why God is allowing it, and how to properly respond to it. And I give you biblical insights on these things. So I show you where a lot of these things have happened already in sacred scripture. And here's what the biblical response is to our present situation. So if you're a non-Catholic who's confused about the situation in the church, or you are a Catholic and you're thinking about leaving, you need to read this book. But anyways, I want to show this video from Jay where not only he proclaims his war on the Orthodox Church in America, but also he talks about some of the problems that are going on in Eastern Orthodoxy. And certainly these are a little bit more local. This is specific to the Orthodox Church in America. He's not going to get into the major schism that is going on right now in Eastern Orthodoxy between Russia and Constantinople and also Alexandria, among others. He's not going to get into those big major problems that exist on a universal level. He's going to be dealing with more some of the problems here in the Orthodox Church in America and other jurisdictions in the United States. I bring this to your attention once again so that you can see from the horse's mouth from somebody who professes to be Eastern Orthodox and is on YouTube every day promoting Eastern Orthodoxy. Well, not as of late. It seems like he's just been doing some pretty secular stuff lately. But on occasion, he still does his Eastern Orthodox stuff. But he's pretty well known for promoting Eastern Orthodoxy on YouTube as a whole. And you get it from his mouth. You get to see where there are problems right now in Orthodoxy that you should consider before just taking the plunge. Go in with both eyes open if you have to make that decision, which I don't agree with, but I'm saying if you're going to do it, go in with both eyes open, being aware of some of these issues. So that's what I want to discuss. Let me go ahead and pull up Jay Dyer's video where he discusses this about 3 weeks ago. Let me share the audio. You should be able to see it on the screen now. Let's see here. Yeah. There we go. Oh, and this is the beginning of the video. It's more towards the 50-minute mark, but first, I forgot he does have this wonderful song at the beginning of the video that he wrote and performed for us. And I just enjoyed it so much that I wanted to watch it with y'all. So let's watch his song first, and then we'll skip his other conspiracy theory commentary and just go straight to the stuff about the Orthodox Church in America. I think he meant for this to be funny, so I'm laughing with him.
Fetal cell sprite. Tonight's the night. Ballin'. Like Joseph Stalin. Ooh, sexy little communist. Sexy little communist.
Is that a $sign microphone?
Doing little praxis.
Oh no, that's a pimp cane with a $sign at the top. Okay.
Ooh, I seen you on my Instagram. You made it my Instagram. Sexy little socialist. You gon' make me Marxist. Big girls need their love too.
It's pretty catchy, you gotta admit. It's pretty catchy. It's funny. I like it. Again, I think it's intended to be humorous, which I think it's successful. And it's catchy. This thing is going to get stuck in your head, I promise you, all week.
You expose the beauty, industrial complex. Big booty, industrial complex exposed. Twerkers in the world unite. Damn. Twerkers of the world unite. Twerkers of the world unite. I will live forever. Damn. I see you on that.
You know you're singing it in your mind right now. You know you are.
It's Instagram, girl. In them yogurt pants. Made me think. Dang. Sexy little communist. Sexy little communist.
Where did he come up with this?
Working out the praxis.
That right there is the best camera angle I've ever seen. Okay, I'm done. I'm tapping out. All right, let's go to the first part here. It's around the 50-minute or so mark. Let's see here.
Go after any of this kind of stuff. And there are times that people continue Jonestown, so I'm not deep to
see. Really great.
There we go.
Oh, I don't agree with that, but I agree with it.
All right, here.
Oh, I don't agree with that.
I'm
By the way, who was right? Who was right throughout this?
So what's going on here is Archbishop Alexander is on the screen, and they're critiquing him and saying that, you know, they believe that he is the one behind some of the criticism that is coming Jay Dyer's way, because Jay Dyer, again, has recently kind of come under criticism from some Orthodox priests who are warning people away from him. And he's saying that it is because of guys like this that he is starting to come under fire. So what they're doing is they're then going to videos of this archbishop, and they're trying to criticize him, saying, oh, here he believes that Origen is a saint and therefore he rejects ecumenical councils. And so who are you to criticize me because you believe that Origen is a saint? And then you had this little mini version of Assisi where you have all these different religions coming together and you have this and that. And so they're criticizing them, saying, well, you have all these problems, so who are you to criticize me and what we're doing here on my channel? That's kind of where they're coming from. So let's get it from the horse's mouth.
All of us, we were. And what is the response of these people? Was it to say, forgive us, we were wrong? No, it's to double down and say that we lost members of our churches in the OCA to bloggers and conspiracy theorists. No.
So one of the charges that has come his way is that during the COVID lockdown, some of the people who used to go to the Orthodox Church in America left for ROCOR and other groups like that, Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia, which is what Jay Dyer is part of. I don't know if he's a practicing Orthodox, but I know that that's where his jurisdiction is. At least the last time I checked, that is his most recent jurisdiction. Okay, that's what one of the charges is that, you know, one of the reasons why we've lost a lot of people in the OCA to ROCOR is because Jay Dyer and others are stealing people. And what Jay Dyer is going to say in response is, no, it's because of the COVID lockdown. And I imagine there's some others who would say it's perhaps a combination of both, and more on, what's taking place behind the scenes as far as poaching converts and stuff like that. More on that will be coming out soon. So stay tuned for more. Not from me, but I'm aware of others who are going to be talking about that soon. So once that comes out, maybe we can revisit it here. But I'll leave it for others to break the news on that.
You lost because you shut your churches down and you were wrong. And it's because you are aligned with evil, namely the Democratic. It's unfathomable to me that anyone could be openly and pushing and aligned with the Democratic Party. And I have that from my godfather. But they're an Orthodox how could there's nothing in the Democratic Party's public, and I'm not saying the Republicans are good, but I'm saying that the public stance of their views on kids.
And again, the claim is that some of these Orthodox bishops support the Democratic Party, which is partly true.
Oh, well, I don't agree to that. Abortion? Oh, I don't agree with that, but I agree with it. What? What is there to agree with?
Just podcast, so don't subscribe, I guess. I don't know. Maybe.
But you're going to hear him called Saint Origen. A thrice condemned by 3 ecumenical councils heretic is Saint Origen.
Keep in mind, Jay Dyer is a conciliar fundamentalist. So he thinks that literally everything that an ecumenical council says is infallible. So he doesn't have that Catholic distinction where we recognize infallible and non-infallible modes of ecumenical councils. He just literally thinks everything that an ecumenical council says is infallible. You're more fundamentalist kind of approach, which is just historically untenable, really, if you look into it. And that's one of the major criticisms I have with the conciliar fundamentalists. But that's where he's coming from. So he's like, look, well, he's condemned by these ecumenical councils, which is a very in-depth discussion, by the way. But nevertheless, he's saying, look, he's been condemned. Therefore, you, Archbishop Alexander, can't call Origen a saint. So who are you to come over here and start criticizing me or having priests criticize me? It's kind of like, instead of saying, well, let me maybe fix this about myself. Let me maybe stop doing these things that you're criticizing me about. He's just like deflecting and saying, well, you do this and you do that, instead of cleaning up his own house.
It's good. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But I wanna show you this section of the interview to really tell you about what kind of a person Archbishop Alexander is. Now, we're not promoting any.
And this is what they do. Anybody who criticizes this group, Jay Dyer's group, they will look all into that person, start doing a ton of videos on that person, trying to expose them. This is what they do. And now they're doing it to their own Orthodox bishops and priests.
True Orthodox nonsense. If you type True Orthodox on YouTube, you know whose video comes up? Mine. And what is that video? Me refuting the fake Orthodox. So I'm not promoting that nonsense either. I deal with that idiocy in another video. But let's listen to what Archbishop Alexander has to say about Origen.
And what he's referring to there about the true Orthodox, for those who may not be familiar, you know how there's a lot of Catholics who see the problems in the Catholic Church, and so they become scandalized by that and they leave and they go to Eastern Orthodoxy. Then when they get to Eastern Orthodoxy, they find out those same problems exist there with liberals and all kinds of, bad things being promoted from even the pulpit and from church leaders. And they see those same things that they left Catholicism over. They start to see in their own parishes and from their own bishops. And so then they start to become scandalized, and then they look for something else. So what they end up going to in some cases is what's called true Orthodoxy. And these are Orthodox groups who are not actually part of Eastern Orthodoxy. They're broken away from them, but they claim to be the true Eastern Orthodox. In fact, I've done some videos on them. I'll put them in the show notes after this video posts on YouTube, but you can find plenty of information about them online. It's kind of like you're Eastern Orthodox version of sedevacantism, even though it's not the same thing because they don't have a pope. So it's not the same thing as sedevacantism. But in the same way that we would see sedevacantists as non-Catholics, it's this really fringe group that has broken away from Catholicism, but it claims to be the true Catholic Church. That's how the true Orthodox are. They're not actually part of Eastern Orthodoxy. They're broken away. They're a very fringe and radical group, but they claim to be the true Eastern Orthodox. That's what one of the individuals that you just heard here, that's what he's talking about, saying that he has done videos refuting.
So the fun thing with the serpent.
This guy.
I wish I could speed up Jay here, but unfortunately it doesn't give me that option with this media player. So I'm just going to play on that one-time speed, unfortunately.
I cited at lunch was from Origen of Alexandria, the great, very great patristic writer. He was not appreciated. 300 years later, they condemned him as a heretic after he died in the...
So he doesn't accept the ecumenical councils.
Well, he didn't say that he doesn't accept the ecumenical councils. He just said that he doesn't accept their decision on Origen. That's different than whether or not he accepts their teachings. You know, it's different. It's a different thing. Whether or not a person has been rightly condemned is different than the truth of what they're teaching and whether or not they properly condemned an error. Those are different things. But you'll see kind of Jay twists his words there. And since he says he believes that Origen is to say, oh, well, you therefore reject these ecumenical councils. And you can look in the comment section where a lot of his followers, they're just like robots. They repeat exactly what they hear from Jay Dyer. So they heard Jay Dyer say, this Orthodox bishop rejects these ecumenical councils. They'll go and post on social media and in the comment section, this Archbishop rejects the ecumenical councils. And it's like, really? I think you read a little bit too much into him there. He might reject this one little part as far as their judgment of an individual. Doesn't mean he rejects all of the councils as a whole or all together or their teachings, but they'll give you that impression. Where do they get it from? They get it from this guy.
Which call Origen a heretic 3 times over.
About Origen.
I cited at lunch was from Origen of Alexandria, the great, very great patristic writer. He was not appreciated 300 years later.
Why do some Eastern Orthodox bishops and priests like Origen? The reason why, well, part of the reason is it's a big teaching in Eastern Orthodoxy to put forward this idea of apokatastasis, the idea that in the end, everyone will be saved. You thought that that was a problem that Catholics were dealing with? Oh, wait until you look into Eastern Orthodoxy and you start to see this being promoted by bishops very openly. Not a dare we hope thing, but they actually believe that everyone will be redeemed. And some might even argue, you know, Satan and demons, just depending on who you're talking to. Now, Origen took that position that everyone would be saved, including demons and the devil, after some period of purification. And a lot of Orthodox priests and bishops push that idea of universalism. So just kind of be aware of that. That's where this is coming from. And Jay Dyer is pointing that out.
Later, they condemned him as a heretic after he had died in the peace of the church 300 years, which was wrong. But
So it was wrong that he was condemned. He's a great man. Ecumenical councils were wrong. The academics have it correct. Origen should be a saint.
he was still a saint.
There you go. So your bishop rejects the ecumenical councils. All of you.
No, he doesn't. To be fair to him, he doesn't reject the ecumenical councils. He just rejects its decision on Origen. That's not the same as rejecting the ecumenical councils or their teachings. You see how he twists words? And then later on, he's going to talk in his video about how he tries to be a sincere follower and seeker of the truth. I'm not buying it because I see this behavior, and I've also seen Dyer engage in numerous acts of lies and slander where I know he didn't have access to any information that would lead him to believe that what he's saying is true. So I know for a fact firsthand that he's deliberately being dishonest in some cases. So I'm not buying it. And these are things I think people should be aware of whenever they consult Dyer.
OCA, Diocese of the East, or whatever.
OCA is Orthodox Church in America.
So Origen is a great patristic writer. He was falsely condemned by a council after 300 years of his death.
It's 3 ecumenical councils that condemn Origen. So here's the person telling you that conspiracy theorists are pushing hate and fear. This is the same guy who, if I recall, is a Bernie bro, Democratic Party Bernie bro. And you're surprised that in the OCA, Diocese of the South, not the East. You're surprised that in the OCA, there's all of these things that we're talking about. So these people foster and allow all of this craziness and problems in their churches and their jurisdictions, shut down the churches because Uncle Sam said so.
So that's a big thing for Dyer and their group. There's a lot of Catholics that were really, really angry with the bishops for shutting down the churches during COVID. Well, there's a whole bunch of Orthodox who feel the same way. And so if that's one of the reasons why you want to leave the Catholic Church, be aware the same thing took place in Eastern Orthodoxy here in the United States.
People leave their churches the last 3 years, and it's my fault. It's Father Josiah's fault. Father Here's fault.
That's not the claim. They're claiming that Dyer's group are actually poaching converts from the OCA parishes. That's the claim. So you're not really getting a candid and upfront interaction of Jay Dyer of what their criticism is. He's kind of strawmanning their criticism.
Fault. Father John Wyford's fault. Father Deacon Ananias' fault. Not their fault. But you can see the theology and the attitude that these people have.
And he's a saint. This is what Archbishop Alexander Golitsyn.
And well, while we're at it, why don't we just let's take a look at the recent. Now, remember, most people are in agreement that I'm not bad for talking about this. But there are a few people pointing out, oh, you are bad for pointing this out because you are a bad person, because you are a crazed conspiracy theorist.
Well, to be fair, he does have some pretty wacky conspiracy theories. He's a sit-in for Alex Jones on occasion, if that tells you anything.
Was I correct about the last 3 years? So let's look at this, and we'll look at the priest who has decided to, at the behest of Bishop Benjamin and at the behest of people at St. Vladimir Seminary and at the behest, I would assume, although I'm not positive, of Bishop Alexander. Let's look at what they're doing. So here is a OCA church in New York, and people found out what this church was. And you can see, well, what a diverse, wonderful, diverse worship service evening was had. And we find rainbow garbed she priests there. We find looks like a Sikh dude. So we're all doing our own little mini version of Assisi here, whatever this is at this.
All right, so pay attention to that. If you recall, Assisi is, by the way, I have a whole video on this I just recently did. I'll put that in the show notes as well. But just type in Reason and Theology, John Paul Assisi, and it should come right up. But Assisi is that event in 1986 where John Paul II brought together representatives of various religions of the world, and they did not pray together. They individually prayed for peace. And I spoke about the good, the bad, and the ugly of that event in the video. Go and watch it. But one of the things that you'll constantly hear from the Dyer group that they'll throw in our faces, the Assisi event, which the major representatives of Eastern Orthodoxy participated in, by the way. But they'll constantly throw that in our face as if that's somehow a legitimate criticism against Catholicism, but not in turn saying a criticism of Eastern Orthodoxy, given that their representatives were present for the meeting as well. And so they'll constantly throw that in our face. But here, from his own mouth, his own admission is they're having their little own versions of Assisi. They're struggling with some of the same problems that they criticize Catholicism for. And this is not a one-off thing. I've actually documented some other instances on this channel where I go into some of these, though I don't tend to document all of them because I don't have any interest in just going and exposing all of the problems in Eastern Orthodoxy. I tend to only bring up an occasional video here and there to show, but wait, look, if you guys are wanting to leave the Catholic Church because you think that there's problems in the church and you want to go to Orthodoxy, wait, not so fast. Realize that if you're going to be consistent, you can't go to Eastern Orthodoxy as well. You might want to start rethinking your criticisms here. All right, let's continue.
And there was Roman Catholics present, there were Buddhists present, and I'll show you because it's listed on the website. Somebody put the website in here. I'm trying to find it because the full thing was pretty wild. So I asked the priest, and now this is the priest, by the way, who is giving the lectures for the OCA, saying that I need to be avoided. Father.
So that's the claim. And I haven't seen concrete evidence for that yet, but it may be true. May also not be true. I don't know. There may be a grain of truth to it. It might be entirely true. But that's the claim, is that Father David Galloway from the OCA has been giving lectures on why people need to avoid Jay Dyer. Again, that's Dyer's claim about him. Take it with a grain of salt, unless there's some kind of evidence confirming that. So what Dyer's going to do is he's going to speculate that, Father David was actually put up to this, perhaps by his bishop.
David Galloway, here is his information, public. You're doxing people. These are public people. It's not doxing people.
The claim about doxing people, that is looking up their private information and trying to harass them. Jay says, well, his information here is public. That's actually not where those claims come from. There are instances where Jay Dyer's group, and I know this firsthand, Jay Dyer's group will actually go and dox information from people that is not very easily accessible online. They'll go and try to find out as much information as they can and then call them and harass them and then try to get them, kicked out. So perhaps out of, their parish or something like that. There are instances where they do this, and they'll go and harass a priest, for instance, a priest, if they believe that, this particular priest is too friendly to the Catholics or something like that. They'll go and harass that person. They'll track them down, find out what parish there are. They'll go and contact him nonstop. They'll then go and contact his bishop and all kinds of stuff. That's where the doxing charges come from, but you won't hear that coming from Jay in this video. He won't tell you that. He'll just kind of present a straw man of, well, his information's right here, so all those nasty charges about me doxing people, it's unfair. This is just public information. But that's a straw man. That's not really where Dyer's group gets accused of being, of doxing people.
The OCA lists all their priests' phone numbers and where their priests at. It's not doxing. It's all public. And here he tells you right here, family man and a seminarian at St. Vlad's. And because he wrote a paper on blogging, okay, again, like it's the year, 2010? Blogging has disrupted Orthodoxy.
So a lot of these priests, a lot of Orthodox priests don't want to say anything about Jay Dyer because they're afraid of having to deal with all of his fans, because some of his fans will then harass them and dox them and try to make their life a nightmare. They will do that. I'm not saying that Dyer himself personally does that, but I know that other people around him do that. And I know of multiple instances where this happens. And so a lot of these Orthodox priests don't want to speak against Dyer. They're just like, I know what he's doing is wrong. They don't agree with it. They think that he's not a good representative of Eastern Orthodoxy, but they're kind of afraid of saying something. But there have been some priests who are starting to come out and publicly say things about Dyer. And I'm like, gosh, it's a little too late. Y'all should have been doing that a long time ago.
I've had more Twitter activity than I'm accustomed to. I was happy to answer Jay's question of why I don't recommend his work, but I do not plan on attacking him or other people I disagree with regularly. My goal is to embrace normodoxy and live an incarnated life. Well, that's very pious. So you don't want to answer, but it's interesting that you give lectures on why I should be avoided, which the bishops, of course, your bishop, presumably, or Bishop Benjamin put you up to. But why would you not want to answer the question?
Notice the language, presumably. So this is just according to Dyer. Don't know if we have actual evidence for this. But again, in the process of all this, he's going to show you kind of the underbelly of Eastern Orthodoxy.
If you're competent to tell people to avoid me, which you do admit that you're saying this, right? Why I don't recommend his work. But I don't plan to...
That doesn't mean he's doing lectures on him. That's a little different. And that doesn't mean that he's publicly doing this. Maybe that's true. Maybe he is. But it also doesn't mean just because he's saying I don't recommend his work doesn't necessarily mean that he's doing all that.
So in other words, you would rather covertly give lectures and talks at churches on why I should be avoided, but you won't face and talk to me about why.
And again, I don't know if there's evidence for that. Take everything Jay says with a grain of salt, because what he'll do is he'll take something that has just a little bit of truth in it and he'll just stretch it and he'll just make a million assumptions on it. It's like ancient aliens. You know, they find this interesting anomaly and then they'll do an entire episode about how aliens somehow, you know, created that site or something like that. They'll find this interesting anomaly and they'll say, well, we discovered this anomaly, and it's possible that this could not have been created by humans at the time, and it's possible that they were contacted by ancient aliens at the time and instructed on how to do this, and therefore it's also it's possible that ancient aliens were the founders of the human race, and if that's true, it's possible that, and they will just build on speculation and more speculation, built on more speculation and more assumptions, and until it turns into, you know, ancient aliens are responsible for the Big Bang theory or the universe, you know, exploding from one little point. That they'll just turn it into a huge thing from one little tiny piece of evidence. They'll just build with assumption after assumption. Dyer is the same way. He'll see something, you know, like Father Galloway is saying he doesn't recommend his work, and he'll just build from there.
And what I asked was, do you find this kind of of a situation with celebrating together with she priests, is this something that you would support? Because I was curious what his stance was. And again, this is not somebody, I don't know who this person is. I was alerted from 2 other clerics that this person lectures against me.
You see, so he doesn't actually have confirmation. He doesn't really know much about Father Galloway, but he was told this from somebody else, so he just assumes it. And then whenever he reads the priest saying on Twitter that he doesn't recommend his work, well, then you must be doing these lectures against me, and presumably your bishop put you up into it. And it's like, wait, hold on, he didn't say any of that. You're just assuming all of this with wild speculation. Maybe it's true that happened, but you don't have enough evidence for this. He does this not only with Orthodox, he does this with all of his fringe conspiracy theories.
No, I'd never talked to this, never called him out, never said it. I don't know who he is, but he was appointed to do this.
Was he? Where's the evidence that he was appointed to do this? We just went from one little tweet where he said, I don't recommend your lectures, all the way to he was appointed to do this. Zero evidence for that.
And so I said, well, I'm glad to hear that you don't agree morally with this, but I'm curious to know why you feel the need to warn people about what I do. And does that mean that you do support Bishop Benjamin, who I assume put you up to warning people about me? Does that mean you do support the shutting down of the churches, the forbidding of the veneration of icons, and
because during COVID, one of the things is you would normally, venerate an icon by kissing the icon. And so some bishops and priests did not want people kissing the icons and therefore venerating them in that way, so as not to spread COVID. That's what he's referring to there.
Bishop Benjamin and others' decision to target anybody who associates with meat. Is that also something that you support? And of course, no reply to that. But he does point out again on his page. Notice how this works. I've had more Twitter activity because of this than I've had. I'm happy to answer Jay's question of why I don't recommend his work, but you didn't, or at least I didn't see if you did. All you said was, I don't know who these people are, but he did answer. Okay, so I haven't seen this. You want to assume that I disagree.
This is a part of the problem, is that Dyer doesn't sufficiently inform himself before speaking on issues.
Agree with the positions that you hold. Well, you admitted that you don't support what I talk about. I advise priests and bishops not to recommend your work, and it has nothing to do with your positions on social matters, but the way that you conduct discourse. And so here we go. When you have a friendly interlocutor on, such as gospel simplicity, you present valuable conversations, but your debating style is distasteful, and you stir the passions of yourself and your audience.
So for context, there's a video in the show notes where I did my most recent critique of Jay Dyer, where I went over a few of these instances. There are numerous instances where he has outrageously unchristian behavior publicly. I only just give you a little tiny sample of them. So go to the video in the show notes. You'll see what I'm talking about there. That's what Father David Galloway is talking about. He'll say, look, when you have these videos with Trent Horn or gospel simplicity, with big profile debates and stuff like that, he will be very well behaved and very professional. And a lot of people will say Jay Dyer is just so charitable and professional because all they've seen are those videos. But then you go to these other videos where he's calling people effing effers and effing this and that. And it's just the worst possible things that you could say about people. And he'll do it publicly, and not just once, but multiple times on multiple occasions. That's what Father is talking about. But instead of really addressing that legitimate criticism, you're going to see him deflect and strawman it and paint it out to be like, well, he just gets excited during the debates and he's just passionate about defending his faith. Well, there's nothing wrong with being excited and passionate about defending your faith. I don't have any criticisms of that, and I don't think anybody should criticize Dyer for that. But that's not what Dyer does, as I show in that video that I just referred you to, among others. He does way more than that. He becomes incredibly disrespectful and uses disgusting and vile language and is offensive. And then after that, off camera, a ton of his followers will start to dox that person and threaten them and harass them and say the world's worst things about them, and then take pictures of them and modify them in disgusting ways and post it on social media. And Dyer's aware of some of this stuff and, doesn't say, hey guys, no, stop, don't do that. That's what Father Galloway is referring to. And it's true. There is some duplicity here. Dyer's very well behaved in some of these high profile debates, but then in the lower profile debates and other more random streams, you see a very different side. And then off camera, you see very different behavior as well from this group.
So what about the individuals in this image, right? So I'm the person that's a problem because I debate people, and debating stirs the passions of people.
That wasn't what Father Galloway was saying. You see how he strawmanned him? Instead of saying, you know what, maybe this priest has some legitimate criticisms about me. Let me examine myself. Let me take this prayerfully before God and really consider, have I sinned here? Instead of doing that, just automatically dismisses it, strawmans it.
So heated debate stirs the passions of people. So does that mean that all the Orthodox theologians and church fathers that had heated debates were stirring the passions of everyone?
Those Orthodox theologians and church fathers did not behave the way Jay Dyer and his followers behave.
What about this image? Does it stir the passions? Where is the calling out? So in other words, you will lecture about avoiding me because I'm
We don't know that if he does, that he actually does these lectures.
mean in debates. That's all they can come up with.
And I don't think that that's all they come up with. They're not saying some of the things that they have grievances with Dyer and his group. They're not saying these things publicly. But I'm aware of what some of their grievances are. I won't express them here. I'll wait until somebody breaks that information. But I'm aware of what some of their grievances are. Maybe his side has a legitimate response to those things whenever the news breaks from other individuals. Maybe we'll find out more then, but I don't know. They have some more serious grievances with this group, not necessarily saying Dyer himself, but that Dyer group. And Dyer's not really telling you that. He's just kind of painting the straw man here.
And he says it just drives clicks. Many people find the church through your videos, but you need to tell them more about loving Christ rather than hating the world. Do I talk about hating the world? I don't know what he talks about. I don't think that.
I think what Father Galloway is saying is that a lot of Dyer's content is incredibly hateful and stirs people's passions and makes them want to be more hateful towards others, such as Catholics. And you know what? He's right.
I don't know what these people are saying. I don't know that he's that familiar with the stuff that we talked about. But he's ready to point out that in the case of Gospel Simplicity and Jonathan Pageau, we had perfectly friendly conversations.
I've had perfectly friendly conversations with Dyer, and then I've seen him completely shift and go a very different direction. But what Dyer will do is he'll point to those discussions and say, see, I can behave myself. But he won't show you the other ones and talk about the other videos where he's a very different person.
But debating is bad. So the best that they can come up with is that debating is bad. Now, does he point out that
They never criticized him saying debating is bad. You see how he twists things? This is what he does nonstop. So what I want to say is if you're looking into orthodoxy and you're looking at Dyer as a valuable resource, I want you to consider if he twists things this severely, do you think he also might do that with the theological sources that he's reading? Do you think he might be fair with the theological and historical resources that he comes across? Or do you think he might also twist some of those things as well? You're seeing him twist the words of Father Galloway. Ask, does he do that elsewhere?
the people that have put him up to the task of lecturing against what I do, does he point out that their support of Skittles things perhaps stirs the passion?
He's referring to the homosexual promoting pastor or female pastor, whatever, in that picture.
Does he point out that any of these other people stir the passions? I mean, who's actually stirring the passions of people here? And it's funny because he admits that he wants to be, quote, normie docs, which was a joke that I said like 5 years ago. So debating is bad. What about all this Skittle stuff? Is that bad? Do you going to call that out, or is it just me? So again, remember that that's all they can come up with is that debating is bad. That's it.
No, they got a lot more to say. He just didn't put it all in that series of tweets there. But I imagine he has a whole lot more he could say. He just hasn't put it all out there.
But does that mean that you are admitting or you are agreeing to the fact that you were tasked with this by presumably Bishop Benjamin, who does not have a very happy record of being a bishop? And I will spare everyone the history of that because, we'll be bringing on other priests, by the way, who don't believe and don't support the idea that debating or being heated and having a passionate view is somehow inherently bad. In fact, I just think that there's a lot of people who are using that as an excuse. Their excuse is that, well, what do we have on him? He debates. It's distasteful. So that's all we've got. Let's just say that that's what makes him a bad guy. Then we can dispense with what he says. Well, it's easy to say that when you're tasked with basically just lecturing against me because you cover the blogosphere, and you
Notice again, he is just repeating this as gospel truth because he heard it from somebody else. This is what Dyer does. I see it constantly. I'll hear somebody else say something, and in some of those cases, they're not true. And Dyer will just then repeat them publicly. And guess what happens? He has a cult following, and a lot of his cult followers will repeat it as gospel truth all over social media and will defame people here and there over whatever Dyer said with no evidence. They'll just take it and run with it.
assume that all I want is clicks. But when you're actually in the field and you're actually debating Muslims and you're actually getting death threats and you're actually dealing with this kind of
Funny that he says that. Again, I wonder, some of the behavior of the followers of Dyer, they engage in this kind of stuff. I wonder, does Dyer condemn that? And if so, will he come out and openly say that he condemns the behavior of some of his followers when they engage in that kind of behavior? I'd like to see him say that. But here he's playing the victim.
stuff, things change quite a bit. You know, when people are trying to ruin your life, when people try to come after you. And I understand that that's part of the job. But the idea that because I debate in some passionate, heated way, that's the chief thing that you need to combat, that you feel the need to come after, to me speaks worlds. Where are you telling Muslims about Christ? Where are you telling the atheists about Christ? The stuff that you tell me that I should be doing. That I should be telling the young men to love Christ. We've told thousands of young men that. And it is in fact the OCA that says we don't want those young men on at least 2 occasions. And even the people in the chat are pointing out that it's not even true. It's just an embarrassment to people in the Orthodox world that you would virtue signal about debating when your churches are promoting things 10 times worse than anything that I'm up to over here, debating. That's your level of moral sensibilities. That's the level of discernment. Shutting the churches down, no problem. Telling people to get stabbies, no problem. Don't venerate the icons, no problem. But if you debate and you get heated about it, whoa, toxic, whoa. And that is precisely why it's just really bizarre to me, confusing, right? It's just piety signaling. That's it. So again, this is no problem. Notice this is no problem. It's not a problem to say Origen is a saint, a person condemned by 3 ecumenical councils. But if you debate,
I deal with that.
if you debate, serious problems.
Let's listen to what Archbishop Alexander has to say about Origen.
I cited at lunch was from Origen of Alexandria, the great, very great patristic writer. He was not appreciated. 300 years later, they condemned him as a heretic after he had died in the peace of the church, 300 years, which was wrong. But he was still a saint.
So there you go. So that's all good. Thumbs up. All good. No problems with that. Apparently, no, it's Jay that's the problem, right? So even though Father Stephen Andrew Damick can invent stories that I'm part of the tiny mustache man follower.
Father Damick is really well-known Eastern Orthodox priest with Ancient Faith Radio, a very popular Orthodox radio program, kind of like your version of Catholic Answers, but an Orthodox version of that. That's who he's referring to here, and he's saying that Father Damick has criticized him. So
he can try to get me excommunicated by calling my priest back in 2018 to try to have me not come into the church and
don't know if any of that is true.
all this kind of stuff. All that's not a problem. If you're a heated debater, if you get heated in debate, that's the problem. Yeah, exactly.
Again, he deals with the straw man instead of being honest and saying, here's the things I've really done, and I'm sorry for those, and I'm going to repair those things and work on them. And instead of doing that, he's just kind of like, well, you do this and you do that. It's just a deflection game.
Exactly. I was trying to find the link that actually shows this whole event. You notice there's so many people in the comments are like, yeah, well, I converted out of all this stuff. Imagine being Roman Catholic and being told that you're that the OCA in 2025 is thinking about going back to Rome. I mean,
pay attention to that, even though that's not going to happen. Will happen in a million years. But pay attention to that, because he is actually touching on something that Catholics will experience if they go to Orthodoxy, and that is maybe you're upset with all the ecumenism and stuff like that. You leave, you go to Orthodoxy, and then all of a sudden you find out that your Orthodox bishop is into the ecumenism too. And not only that, but here now your Orthodox bishop goes and does a joint Vespers with your former Catholic bishop. That becomes a little awkward. So,
I mean, who would want to convert to Roman to Orthodoxy if, oh, well, we're going to go back to Rome pretty soon anyway. So, and this has been discussed. It's been in the works for a long time. So this is not me. So it's a conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy theory. I really think that there's such a lack of masculinity.
Trending Lofton SX or SS. It's interesting.
In a lot of these circles that people mistake being masculine, being passionate, standing your ground. That's considered the passions and toxic masculinity. No. Standing up against, look at this. He says that I'm the one that called out this nonsense, not him. But I'm the bad person because I've gotten heated in debate. It's just,
I don't even know what they did. I don't know if there was an actual prayer meeting together or if literally they just came together to have a dialogue or discussion. I don't know. I don't know what took place. And Dyer doesn't really give us the details.
It just blows my mind, like how backwards all of this is. I mean, cutting penises off of children? Is that bad? Is that something you should be aligned with your bishops aligned with the Democratic Party? No, I'm the bad person because I'm debating. Give me a freaking break. So I give him props for at least admitting that he does lecture and tell people to avoid me. And why is it? Because I debate. It just blows me away. Like that's.
Do you see what he's doing here? He's really stretching the situation, really exaggerating things, straw manning it, and then presenting it as gospel truth, and then stirring up his followers, who then get stirred up into a frenzy, and then they start to go to work on the priest and the bishop and their social media.
Imagine all you'd have to come up with is that, like, of all the things, like, I'm looking for that 2024 article. Or is it 2025, the reunion?
The only thing that's supposed to happen in 2025 is there's supposed to be a shared date on Easter, from what I remember. But there's no reunion between Orthodox and Catholics by 2025. There's zero reason to believe that's going to happen. I don't know anybody actually reporting and saying that's legitimately going to happen.
What was that article called?
Totally, 100%, totally. And the World Economic Forum, friend, it's
tapes, because this is basically
imposed
to people
Skipping.
until there's an attempt to subvert what we do or to come after us. And he says, but the debating style is differently to people. So there's like 6. So he says that you keep wanting to assume that I disagree with your positions. Okay. But that's why I didn't assume. I simply asked what your take was. And I said nothing about what I asked made any assumptions.
And he has assumed. He assumed that he's lecturing. He assumed that his bishop put it up to him.
It was a question. But I'm also curious too, that did you take this task to come after me, or were you tasked with this via Bishop Benjamin? And we're going to look at Bishop Benjamin and who his spiritual father was here in a minute, based on articles that have been on Orthodox websites for many years. But it's my understanding, as I've heard from a couple priests, that you were tasked with this by Bishop Benjamin. So it doesn't have to do with positions, but it's the conduct, right? So they can't find anything with the theology and the things I talk about. And so he says, you had a friendly conversation with Gospel Simplicity and Jonathan Pajot. So what that shows is that, we're typically very cordial with people. We're always friendly to people until there's an attempt to subvert what we do or to come after us.
No, I can tell you firsthand that's not the truth. I remember when Dyer went after me and a few others in my camp, and it wasn't initiated on our end. It was initiated on their end. So that's 100% false. And I know if that's true for me, it's got to be the experience of others as well. Pretty much everybody who has ever interacted with Jay Dyer has the same story, that he does this exact kind of stuff to them. You wonder why.
And he says, but the debating style is distasteful. It stirs the passions. Now, again, if you deal with people who are very petulant and very oppositional and very, very much hate what you believe.
That's not the case for the people that he has spoken to horribly and treated in a very, very unchristian way. It's not in all cases where they were treating him poorly.
You're going to get heated, especially with groups that offer death threats. Right?
That's interesting. Again, does he condemn that whenever you have that kind of comparable behavior from his camp, from people in his group, from his followers? Does he condemn that?
Right, like Muslims or people like that, right? So having passion in the sense of being passionate about your beliefs is not the same thing as giving into the passions.
When he treats Catholics horribly, are those Catholics giving him death threats? No. What's the excuse there?
And if in the span of, we'll say, 50 hours of public debates, there are a handful of instances where I got angry.
Handful. Wow. Yeah, I think Jay needs to take a better, make a better evaluation of himself in his own debates. A handful? Really?
I will admit that, in 50 hours of debates, there are a handful of times where I got angry. Sure.
I think we need some more self-reflection here.
And you could say that's stirring of the passions. But that is this thing that you need to go after, to me, is again disingenuous, given the fact that there are things 50 times worse than what I have done in terms of getting mad going on in OCA churches.
I've never been impressed by people who do this. Instead of just saying, you have a legitimate criticism about me. And by the way, these are not the strongest criticisms against Dyer. I think that Father Galloway could have offered some stronger criticisms against Dyer, what he's doing, but he chose to go this direction. Don't know why. But I think that Dyer could do some self-reflection in here and say, you know what? I have been accused of this. I apologize. I'm sorry. And I'm really going to fix this and actually mean it, because he does that every time and then goes right back to doing it a week later. So actually mean it this time and really make some changes. I would have been more impressed if he had done that instead of just deflecting, shifting the blame and saying, but you guys do this, you do that. That's not going to work. It's like when, one of your children, you're disciplining them, they did something wrong, and they want to say, but so-and-so, the other sibling, but they do that. Okay. And that's a problem, but that's irrelevant to your own behavior, and you're not taking accountability for your own behavior. I'm just not impressed by this.
That I'm not aware of you calling out or publicly giving lectures about. Where are the lectures warning about the things that I called out? But rather your response is to assume motives on my part that I just want to drive clicks. So the only reason I would engage in debates is to drive clicks. So you imported motives to me, and it does more harm than good. Well, how do you judge that? Says who? So a lot of young men and women find out about the church, but I'm not spending enough time telling them to love Christ, rather to simply hate the world. Again, never even use the phrase, you should hate the world. It's time to hate the world.
All right. I'm pretty sure he's not saying that he says those exact words. He's talking about the attitude and disposition of the content.
Or, I don't have any death to the world t-shirts, which is an Orthodox phrase, by the way. And I've always said that my point was rather to merely be a person that points the way. That's it. I'm not a spiritual guy. We always have deferred,
thank goodness,
people to spiritual guides and spiritual fathers from the very beginning. When I came into the church 2017, 2018, I took all of my essays, things that I'd written, and I gave them to 2 different priests. And I said, I would like you to read these over.
Is he still under those priests, or did he leave them?
Don't want to be publicly talking about these things. Now he says, my talk.
I would sincerely like to know, those priests that he submitted this to, did they have any feedback for him, and he's still under their spiritual guidance? Or did they have feedback for him, he didn't like it, and he went somewhere else? I don't know. I'm just asking questions.
In terms of why I should be avoided, is based on a survey of OCA and Antiochian clergy. Who are they? Like, which ones? Only 3. Is that all of them? Only 3.4% recommended your content. Similar numbers for Father Peter Hears' Orthodox Ethos.
Also, very, very problematic figure, Father Peter Ayres. Same group, same company, same crowd, same kind of followers, same issues.
And the bad guys, Orthodoxy and Dialogue, Public Orthodoxy, and the Wheel, because they create significant pastoral issues for clergy. What is the significant pastoral issue that I'm creating for the clergy? Because you've included me with Father Hears, who also makes converts, but you've also included me with these, far other. So I'm the extreme of rigorism or something like that versus the extreme of liberalism. So you're trying to play the position of enlightened centrist, right? But what exactly are the significant pastoral issues that I've created? Most of the priests that I talk to feel the same way. Well, that's fun.
I think some of those are going to be coming out. I think there are some pastoral concerns that you'll be seeing soon.
Because most of the priests that I talk to don't feel that way. So I'm sure that within your niche.
I don't know. I've talked to a whole lot of Orthodox priests who have a lot of problems pastorally and theologically with Jay Dyer, and especially his cult followers and their behavior. And I'm pretty sure that behavior is causing some serious pastoral issues. You get one of those fired up orthobro cult followers of Jay Dyer come to your parish and start stirring things up and trying to create issues in your parish, and maybe saying that the priest is a liberal and this and that and creating problems. I'm pretty sure that causes some pastoral issues
of OCA people that don't like me. So it'd be like, I've surveyed the Democratic Party and the Democrats agree that we should be a Democrat. And by the way, even if there was some percentage, even if most of the clergy, that were most of the clergy on board with Bishop Benjamin's shutdown of the churches, forbidding veneration of icons. So is truth determined by democratic consensus? 51%. What's the percentage that makes something true or false? Most of the priests that I talk to are the same. They don't want to run afoul of your audience, and so they ignore you. I mean,
Yep. I know exactly what that priest is talking about because I've had to deal with it. I know others who have had to deal with it. But I'm used to it. I deal with this kind of stuff not only from them, but from all kinds of people every day. So I'm used to it. So I don't care. All the orthobros who watch this video, all the cult followers of Jay Dyer, they'll try to attack me and do all kinds of things. But you know what? It's just another day in the office for me. Doesn't bother me. I deal with it every day. But I could see a priest who doesn't have to deal with that every day, why they wouldn't want to deal with that. I get that.
Again, we have priests reach out all the time and have people talking to me all the time. So I'm sure, again, within the OCA circles that you're associated with, yeah, you're going to find people that don't like what we do. And again, even if all of the people didn't like what I do, like, would that itself prove or disprove anything? Not necessarily. And again, the irony is that so rather than picking any specific, it's just this vague stuff of like, you're mean in debates. You cause problems for priests. No examples. What priest had a problem from what I did? Can you give me?
So for all the Orthodox priests who are watching, I know a lot of you don't want to speak up, but I think it's time for you to speak up against what you've observed going on from this group. If you want to come on Reason and Theology and talk about it, let me know. Contact me, Michael@reasonandtheology.com. We'll talk about it and we'll see about having you on, because I think it's time to come on and say specifically, here's the problems I'm experiencing pastorally because of followers of Jay Dyer and or Dyer himself, whatever you're experiencing. Dyer saying he wants people to speak up and say, here's what you're going through if this is really happening. Okay, well, I'll give you an opportunity to do that if you want to come on the show and do it. Again, I know a lot of priests don't want to say anything, but if you feel it's time, okay, you got an open invitation with me.
Examples of this? It's very generic things. Just like when they say he's extreme. What does that mean? 1997 ESPN extreme sports? What are we talking about extreme? It's a vague term that is elastic. It could be anything.
It's hard for me to believe that Dyer is really, really this aloof. I truly wonder, does he really not know when they say he's extreme, when they say they have pastoral problems? Does he really not know? Is he really being sincere right now? Is he really that unable to reflect on the actions of his own behavior and his followers that he's aware of? In some cases, he's aware of them. Is he really unable to reflect on them critically, and he's just unaware and he just doesn't know, and so he has no idea what they're talking about? Or is this a game? It's one of the two. Either Dyer is so unable to critically examine himself and his followers, or this is disingenuous. It's one of the two.
They don't want to run foul of your audience, so they ignore you. I was asked to present on my survey results at a conference by the priest running the conference, and so I did. Well, I'm sure.
Well, Orthodox priests, FYI, that strategy isn't working for you. Just saying, I don't want to run afoul of his audience, so I'm not going to say anything. I get it, but that hasn't been working for you, has it? No. So it's probably time to say something.
That within the OCA circles that you run, I'm sure that most of those people who agree with shutting down the churches, probably that Stabby should have been mandated, probably bishops
He's talking about the vaccine.
associated with the Democratic Party. I'm interested, are you also associated with the Democratic Party? Do you agree with the stances of the Democratic Party? Do you agree with Bishop Benjamin and other bishops like Bishop Alexander being associated with the Democratic Party? So again, yes, they tasked you. Sounds like you were asked to present so you were asked by who? Presumably by whoever tasked you with the course of going after the online blogosphere. You have gifts of intelligence, articulation, and verbal fluency. I have hopes that you will find a better way to use those gifts to serve the church. I have no desire to attack you.
That would be awesome. Dyer does have a lot of gifts, and he could do a lot of good for the kingdom of God if he used them properly. That'd be awesome.
But I do not recommend your work. Well, this is a passive aggressive response, but I at least appreciate that you replied. I mean, that's I guess notable. I expected that I would have been blocked and just ignored, but it sounds like that at a certain point, because I wasn't able to be run out of the church when I tried to join. And
just FYI, Dyer is usually the one who blocks others. I know he blocked me. I know he blocked many, many others, and we weren't even saying anything critical or negative to him. So usually he's the first to pop off, say something nasty, be uncharitable, and then he'll block you right after that. It's like, what in the world? I didn't even say anything.
2018 by Father Damick. Now it's been a thing. Well, we'll ignore him. Well, now we can't ignore what he talks about because his audience has grown bigger than AFR. Now we have to figure out why he's bad. He is mean, right? And that's the best I can come up with. So, it's a passive aggressive response, but at least it's a response, which I guess is commendable.
Yeah, somebody in the chat says Dyer's blocked me on every platform. I just asked a question once. Yeah, that's very common. And I'm curious why he blocked Dr. Jared Goff when Dr. Goff came into his stream respectfully, very kindly, offering some challenges on his essence and energies understanding. Yep, blocked. Wouldn't give him a platform at all and won't debate him, won't have a discussion with him, nothing. Why? Because somebody like Jared Goff is qualified in that area. Dyer would not be able to have a response to what he's saying. And so just block. I find that curious. But then he talks about people blocking him potentially.
And by the way, if you want to support, you can send me super chats here. Now, you guys may think, well, why do you care about this? Why are you being mean, Jay? No. You understand that what's going on here is that essentially we have, and the reason I've chosen to do this, because when I started the stream, I didn't know he had replied in this whole thread here. I just thought it was one reply that he had about that he didn't agree with it.
Yeah, this is the problem. Again, Dyer doesn't really look into things. He just hears somebody else say it and he repeats it. He'll hear somebody spread a lie. He'll just go and retweet it and add to it. He does this habitually. This is just another example.
This she priest sing along worship service or whatever this madness is. And so again, it's just you're mean, but jokes are mean. I mean, so does that mean that everybody who makes jokes is mean? You see, mean is something that's also kind of subjective too, right? Because do you mean mean-spirited? I'm not mean-spirited.
Oh,
if I make it,
gosh, if Dyer and his group aren't mean-spirited, who are? Who would be the definition of that? Like, show me the standard of that. Again, zero self-awareness or dishonesty, one of the two. Maybe he is self-aware and he's just being disingenuous. I don't know. I give people the benefit of the doubt that they're not being disingenuous, although I do know of instances where he has been directly disingenuous. In this particular case, I don't know. Maybe he does just have such a poor evaluation or reflection on himself. He's unable to really make a proper assessment of himself, and he really doesn't see himself as mean-spirited. That blows me away, though.
Joke about something, that's not necessarily mean-spirited. If I say that somebody's an idiot, does that mean that, is Solomon mean?
No. But calling him an effing blank might be a little bit mean-spirited. I can't even say the stuff he was saying.
Solomon calls people fools all throughout Proverbs. So was the Holy Spirit inspiring Solomon to be mean when he called people fools? How are we supposed to avoid the fool if we can't recognize a fool?
Speaking of recognizing fools,
what about Bill Gates? What about these characters? Are they mean? Do you think it's mean to force experimental mRNA on people? Is that mean, or is that...
So he's really pointing at the behavior of non-Christians to somehow make up for his own behavior?
Cool. Curious. Mean. Does it say anywhere in scripture that is mean? Where is that? Is that a sin? Mean?
No, but the language that he uses is a sin, and you can see that in St. Paul. He talks about not using filthy speech and obscene talk, all of which Dyer does excessively. Those are sins. Slander, that's also sin. Lying, that's also sin.
So anyway, yeah, again, why would you be? Well, because there's now a public push, right? So that essentially we have people who've decided that there's a need now to publicly reply to and oppose the work that I do and the stuff that I've done and what I've talked about for the last 4 or 5 years. They do not engage in these attempts to address these issues in
I love how he says he has a Master of Arts in philosophy and literature, all but thesis. I love how he has to put that in there.
Crusades for Skittle stuff. I'm just curious if you're doing the same crusade for Skittle stuff, or in that situation, no, we shouldn't go after that. That's, people need love and care. Tell them to love Christ. But if you're mean, well, let's hold conferences and figure out how to take them down, how to shut them down, how to get people to avoid them.
I don't know if there was such a conference. Maybe there was. Again, maybe there have been lectures against Dyer. I hope that there are lectures and conferences and warnings from bishops and priests in the Orthodox Church about Dyer. I hope so. For the sake of their own flock, they need to shepherd their people and tell them, stay away from this. For no other reason, for the sake of their own souls, they need to do that. And I've been very disappointed in the fact that just Orthodox bishops and priests on the whole haven't really been doing that. That's very, very sad in my opinion.
So again, my advice to people, although I don't give you spiritual advice, you can choose who and what you want to associate with. My advice would be to beware of OCA churches, because it is the OCA, particularly Bishop Alexander, particularly Bishop.
And he really wonders what pastoral problems he's causing. He's saying, beware of the OCA. In a little bit, he's going to literally declare war on the OCA, the Orthodox Church in America. He's saying, beware of these. And he's going to tell people not to go to the OCA. He's really wondering what pastoral problems he and his followers have caused. Really? Seriously? If this is what he does on camera, ask yourself what he does off camera.
Benjamin, who have decided that it is time to have a public push, or semi-public push, I guess they're giving private lectures or speeches, on combating internet orthodoxy. Now, combating internet orthodoxy does not mean openly combating the pushers of Skittle stuff. Well, maybe it does, because he does mention the wheel and these horrible things.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of liberalism being promoted in Orthodoxy, with public Orthodoxy and the wheel, among other places. That's what he's referring to.
OID, public Orthodoxy. So like what does a survey have to do with I mean, those are objectively heterodox websites. So do we even need a survey on whether those are helpful websites? It's like it needs truth determined by surveys.
He's really taking this personal instead of just doing some self-evaluation here. But again, in the process of all this, he's kind of showing you the underbelly of what's going on in Orthodoxy. And I want you to, again, keep your eyes on the ball here. And what the ball ultimately isn't so much Jay Dyer and his problems, as much as it is, here's some of the problems you're going to encounter when you encounter, whenever you go to Orthodoxy. So again, if you're criticizing Catholicism for similar things, you might want to reevaluate some things before just diving headlong into Orthodoxy.
And I think that in so many cases, unfortunately, a lot of these people, what I find to be just really grating is that the accusation of mean is really a cloak for other people not wanting to stand up, or other people being envious, or other people just looking for some way, something. What have we got on him?
So he's just assuming bad motives on part of the people who are legitimately criticizing him for way more than being mean.
He used to hit on women 10 years ago.
Was it 10 years ago? I thought he was saying even until recently, right before. Well, anyways, I'm not going to repeat it. Go and watch his own conversion story that he released, 4 years ago. He'll tell you himself what all he was doing. And that's not to put him down, but it is to say that I'm not so sure it was 10 years ago. But again, go and listen to it from the horse's mouth. I'll put a link to his own conversion to Orthodoxy in the show notes. I want to say it was about 4 years ago or so. And go and listen to him and what he has to say. And then maybe compare notes with what he just said.
He drank beer in his 20s. He changed his mind about religion in his 20s several times. What else?
Yeah, none of that's really, I mean, I'm not making light of sin, but those things aren't that bad. If that's all I was guilty of in my life, I'd be doing pretty good. So I'm not pointing fingers here. I guarantee I've done way worse than Jay Dyer has ever done in his entire life. Guarantee it. Absolutely, 100%. But I'm just saying, is he really portraying himself accurately here? That's all I'm asking. I'm not so sure he is.
What else have we got? Well, he's mean now. That's it. Just mean. Okay, sure. So again, notice the double standard. Soft talking podcasts that you do, right? If you were to do 50 of those, you would still be forever. You'll never please these people. You'll never be anything but the mean internet man. So there's no point even trying to worry about pleasing.
Here it is. I found it. I'll put a link to it in the description. It's this thing. Just go and compare what he says in this talk where he talks about his own story and compare it with what he just said there moments ago and ask if there's some consistency in his own evaluation of himself. Again, not putting him down. And I don't know everything about Jay, but I guarantee I got him beat when it comes to who committed more sins or something like that.
These kind of people. Let's see. Orthodox Zephos, $5. And by the way, I am energized. I will continue. I will constantly be in this battle now. So I am not going to step down. I am now energized.
That's very sad. Instead of just saying, hey, I'm going to work on myself here and I'm sorry for causing any pastoral issues. He's like, no, I'm energized. I'm going to continue. I'm going to war with these people, which you'll see here in a second.
And anyone who joins in with this, I will energize against you as well.
Yeah. He does that even without people joining in. So That's what's just amazing is he's unable to evaluate his own self and realize that he's the one who initiates these things. It's not other people who are energized against him who come and attack him, and he just simply responds. That's not Dyer and his followers. They're the ones provoking.
Because I didn't join this and put so much time and effort into this to play games. I didn't join this because it's just some fun thing to do. Okay, this is not a lot of fun doing all this stuff, right? It's like Father here says, like when you become Orthodox, it's not, that's when the battle begins. Well, that's true. And I don't hate these people, but I think these people are disingenuous because their own bishops in the OCA are promoting wacky, crazy things and have been tasked and tasked these people with opposing me when my focus has been bringing people into Orthodoxy for the last 5 years, thousands of people in the last 5 years by God's grace. And now they are tasked with coming at what I do. Okay. So I will now energize and constantly be in opposition to you as well. And I will not stop. I will constantly do this now. I will stream every day, not just about you, but all of the stuff that I talk about. I will ramp up what I do. I will now blog as well. I will now Substack on this as well. And I will keep doing it, and I will keep doing it. I have indescribable energy for this. And you have pushed and pushed and pushed, even though I have tried my hardest to be very nice, keep my head down, not engage in these kinds of things. Did I come after any priests throughout CUF? Was I calling anyone out?
He's talking about COVID.
No. So, but they have been tasked with coming after me. And all they have is that I'm mean. And they're talking, it's not even anything recent. It's like, 5 years ago, you called Eric Ibarra fat on a podcast. Oh, wow. Big one, right? What's worse? That or
he did way more than that. This is why, again, it's hard for me to believe that this is sincere. I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, though. But if he's being sincere right now, that means he is unable to reflect on himself accurately. That's what's just blowing me away. He presents himself in the best possible light instead of in more accurate terms.
Or, Skittles. Orthodox Zethos, $5. Rosicrucian nuance embedded in the book New Atlantis. Yes, it is essentially some kind of, Rosicrucian type of thing. Bacon's New Atlantis. It prophesies many of what we find in modern society via elitism, and it leads one to believe in the validity. It's not about positions. The question was about Bishop Benjamin's mandates, and did you agree with that? Not my theological positions, but the positions of Bishop Benjamin, which he didn't want to answer for obvious reason. So again, don't support these people in the OCA churches. Don't support those OCA bishops, because as you heard Bishop Alexander himself tell you,
what was that? Influence of Freemasonry and Orthodoxy? Is that what it said?
question was about Bishop Benjamin's mandates, and did you agree with that? Not my theological positions, but the positions of Bishop Benjamin, which he didn't want to answer for obvious reason. So again, don't support these people in the OCA churches.
I'm still just really confused by why over here in the Twitter feed on his screen it has Waffen SS. I kind of know due to some of his followers, but that's interesting.
Don't support those OCA bishops, because as you heard Bishop Alexander himself tell you.
All right. Influence of Freemasonry. I missed it. Inference of Freemasonry on early Greek ecumenism. So Greek Orthodox ecumenism. Which, again, that's one of the big criticisms that a lot of these radical Orthodox have against Eastern Orthodox churches. They're like, oh, this ecumenism going on in Orthodoxy. I mean, this is evil. This is satanic. and so they want to get away from it. And so sometimes they'll go to true orthodoxy, as it's called, which are breakaway groups who have broken away from the Eastern Orthodox.
He believes Origen is a saint. Where's the spiritual discernment of a person calling Origen a saint and calling me a crazed conspiracy theorist, a fear?
So he's saying this bishop has no spiritual discernment because of his position on Origen. Interesting.
Mongering, hate monger, or whatever. All baloney, all lies. So again, Father Galloway is tasked with defending the people that are calling Origen a saint. Now, maybe he doesn't believe that. I hope not. But again, where is his rejection of Origen as a saint? Where's his podcast or his books, his writings about Origen? No, he wrote a thing about blogging. And so he was tasked with talking to people in the blogosphere. So the fact that only 3.4% of the clergy that you survey, which were probably just people who agree with you, the fact that only 3.4% of them had the discernment to realize that the stuff I'm talking about is correct, that just doesn't speak well to the OCA and the Antiochian clergy then, does it? And have the Antiochian clergy also, have they had a good testimony of late?
So now he's going after the Antiochian Orthodox.
Wasn't there something going on with the Antiochians pretty recently? Somebody stepping down, something like that?
I had this pulled up. Let me show you of what he's referring to. I imagine he's referring to this event, which I'll put a link to in the show notes. Metropolitan Joseph of the Antiochian Orthodox Archdiocese forced to resign. Metropolitan Joseph of the Antiochian Archdiocese of America and Canada was forced to resign under the burden of accusations that he was reportedly involved in sexual scandal, a matter which is not mentioned directly in the correspondence between Patriarch Ioannis of Antioch and Metropolitan Joseph himself, and so on. And you can go and read the article about it. By the way, I have a couple other articles kind of related to what Dyer's talking about overall that I'll also put in the show notes. This one's from Orthodox Reflections, reflecting on the recent chaos and division in the Diocese of the West, as well as this one from Monomakos about bloggers. I'll put links to all those in the show notes so you can go and read them at your own leisure. Again, it will kind of give you an idea of some of the things that are taking place in the Orthodox Church in America that are related to the controversies that Dyer is referring to give you a little bit more background.
Did you go on a crusade against that, or you're just tasked with me because I'm the bad guy? Yeah, I'm not the bad guy here, and I'm not going to be guilted into feeling bad because I get heated in a debate.
So he's not going to allow himself to be convicted by the Holy Spirit and by hierarchs who are saying, hey, you might want to check yourself on some of these things.
I mean, honestly, it's kind of pathetic that that's the only thing that you could come up with. I mean, I could give you way worse sins that I've engaged in over the years than that. I mean, do you want me to give you some dirt? You could really expose me when I drunk texted people 10 years ago. How about that? Ooh, there you go. There's some dirt.
No, but let's talk about the recent behavior in the last maybe 3 years. Let's talk about those things.
Dirt. You want to use that? Expose me with that one? It's just ridiculous. All right, so Cubano, $1. Jay, you probably addressed this, but I can't find it. What are your thoughts on the Euthyphro dilemma? Yeah, we've covered that many times. Euthyphro dilemma is based on a different metaphysic. It's based on a notion of a scale of being. And a scale of being is 600 pages for mongering and the dark world to usher in.
I like that picture of Jay Dyer. That's a really good one. I like that.
In the light world, heal people's problems. Or no. The country club doesn't want you. The Democratic Party country club doesn't want you. You cause problems. Mongering, dark, or no, mongering, and the dark world to usher in the light world. What is that? Don't know what that is. Satan is masquerading as an angel of light. Flynn and Company. Okay. I appreciate the super chat, but no idea what you're talking about. OCA Gent, $5. I'm very involved in my parish and my diocese. If I see this nonsense, I will not let it fly, and I will rally people to defend the church. Well, that's a noble attitude, and I think that we can do that. Again, people think that I'm so mean when it's in this situation that I come after any of these people. Never heard of Father Galloway until a few days ago. No idea what this is about until
maybe he didn't go after those people, but he goes after a lot of other people, and that might be what they're concerned about.
Yes, we're telling people to avoid you. Well, again, it's ironic because I send people to your churches and then you tell them to avoid me. It's bizarre, right? Bizarro world. So I guess no longer will I send people to OCA churches. So guys, don't go to OCA churches.
There you go. So don't go to the OCA. But he's wondering why he's causing pastoral problems.
Telling you right here, when you come from my audience to the OCA churches, you cause problems for the priests. I thought priests were there to bring people into the church and heal people's problems. Or no, the country club doesn't want you. The Democratic Party country club doesn't want you.
I didn't see them ever saying that they don't want them, but they just don't want that behavior. So when they come there, just don't bring that wild cult-like fanatic behavior. That's the way I took it, but okay.
Cause problems. Now, I'm not saying that there's all bad people. It's not the people of the OCA. Specific bishops, Bishop Benjamin, Bishop Alexander, and specific clergy who are tasked with these jobs. And again, it's my fault, supposedly, right? I'm the one. We led people out of the OCA parishes because it's not the bishops that shut their churches down. It's me. It's us. Bad people. Bad. Now, I'm not going to be guilted into this, right? These kind of guilt trips don't work.
He will not accept any criticism and self-reflection and conviction and say, maybe I've done some wrong things here and I need to repent of them. He says, nope, not going to do it. What can you really do? I don't know. There might be some things that could be done, but I do wonder why the Orthodox bishops and clergy aren't exercising a little bit more church discipline. This is one of the criticisms I have in the Catholic Church of us not engaging in enough church discipline. You've heard me many times criticize the Catholic Church over this. Well, you know what? To be consistent, I have to say the same thing in Orthodox circles. The grass isn't really that much greener over there.
I'm not guilty of doing anything to you. Don't know you. And I don't feel that bad about being heated in debates. And by the way, when I go to confession, I've confessed being heated in debates.
Well, that's commendable to go to confession. But what happens is Dyer will publicly sin and engage in public acts of lies and slander. And maybe he goes to confession and privately confesses those things, but that's not good enough. Because if you privately lie about people, as Dyer does many, many times, and you publicly lie about people and you publicly slander people, as he's done on numerous occasions, it's really, really important to come back and publicly ask for forgiveness and set the record straight and say, I was wrong, and restore a person's name. But he doesn't do that. So I guess it's better than nothing to go to confession, but it's like, again, if you rob somebody, you take their car at gunpoint, but then you go to confession the next day and say, I stole somebody's car, but then you want to keep the car. Is that really good enough?
So there we go. Osho says $5. Osho put that butt to sleep with that booger whistle. Thank you, Osho, for putting me to sleep. So I'm sure that this is not going to end anytime soon. I'm sure that we are going to enter into a talk because, again, I've never come after any of these people. So in the last 5 years, we have replied to 2 priests. That's it. 2. The first being Father Stephen Freeman. Did I just choose to go after some priests? Nope, never done that. I went after Father Stephen Freeman in a response when he deleted my comments on his blog.
Interesting. I wonder, does Dyer do the same kind of things?
So I made a video saying that here's why I disagree with you. Wasn't rude, didn't call him names, didn't do anything, just said this is why I disagree. That made a lot of people mad, made Jonathan Pageau mad. And that's understandable because Jonathan Pageau was influenced to come into Orthodoxy by Father Stephen Freeman. I don't have anything against Father Stephen Freeman or these people on any personal level. I just disagreed with one of his posts about the Old Testament. That's it. So I made a video explaining why. Well, at that time I was bad because I was in the process of coming into the church. Right. So, you shouldn't be talking about this. You're not in the church yet. Okay, well, fair enough. So then you come into the church. Well, now you're bad because you're too new. You're too young. Fair enough. So I wait and I could, then, you do have approval do you have approval? Oh, okay. Well, you have approval, but now you're mean. So you see that it's that, what's the story in the gospel where it's like, you will never, we played a dirge for you and you didn't do this. And we said dance and you did that. And so you'll never please these people. Okay. But I would have never come to this religion anyway if I was concerned with pleasing people. I'm not interested in pleasing people. So I'm more interested in what's true.
See, I wish I could believe that, but I've just seen him so many times lie about people and slander them. And it's not like he was just misinformed. I know in some cases he didn't have any sufficient evidence to believe that what he was presenting was actually true. So I wish I could believe that he was the guy who really is just, at the end of the day, he's trying to be sincere. I usually by default give people that benefit of the doubt, but I've seen firsthand that's not the case. And I encourage you to look further into Jay and discern whether or not what I'm saying is true. If you're really looking into Dyer and his group and you're considering orthodoxy.
And don't have any problem replying or responding to these people. No, I don't hate these people. I don't know Father Galloway at all. So I appreciate that he replied. I just wish.
Does he really appreciate that he replied?
That I feel sorry for any person tasked with feeling the need to undermine the work that we're doing over here when he admits that, yeah, okay, you brought thousands of people into the church, but you're causing more harm than good. It's bizarre. Okay. So, and as he says, you're causing pastoral problems for the priests. Okay, then guys, don't go into OCA churches.
But see, the priest didn't actually say that, right? That's what Jay is saying.
They don't want you there. As one of the prominent priests in the Diocese of the South said.
Which isn't true, right? As we just saw. That's not true. This is Dyer's spin that he's putting on it.
We don't want young men coming here, especially not from your audience. Okay, so guys, there you've heard it from them. So don't cause these people problems by converting in the OCA parishes. And according to him, we're essentially in the category of public orthodoxy, the wheel, and orthodoxy and dialogue. Okay. So good. I mean, again, I'm happy to be opposed to, I don't care if all of the priests in the Orthodox world dislike me and oppose me.
Really? That wouldn't be a sign to you that maybe you need to change some things? Really?
It wouldn't bother me. I don't care.
Wow.
Like, do you think would I be?
So he really just does not care at all what hierarchs have to say. Not that they're always right. I mean, but I'm just saying, like, gosh, if all of them have the same impression about you, which, again, most people who look into Jay Dyer come away with the same conclusions. If most people are saying the same thing about you, you might want to just honestly consider, is it true?
If this was a popularity contest with all of his percentages of surveys and all this kind of stuff, do you think I would have come to this position if it was about popularity? And I want to be the most popular. I want to be like Ancient Faith Radio, which, by the way, isn't popular anymore. But anyway.
Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, so I guess the battle has begun. Let's go to war.
You heard it, as he always says, right? He says this with various Catholics that he doesn't like. We're going to war with them. But now he's going to war with the OCA. I didn't make that up in the thumbnail. He's saying, I'm going to war with them. And notice he's stirring up his audience. Let's go to war. This is what he does. He stirs them up, and behind the scenes, they'll go and do all kinds of nasty stuff. And I'm sure they'll try to take some swipes at me. You'll see Dyer trying to take some swipes at me and his audience and all that, as usual. But you know what? They do that even if I didn't make this video. They do that, period. So you'll see what I'm talking about. Just go and watch their behavior.
Be streaming, blogging constantly.
He's going to be streaming and blogging constantly about the OCA now. Okay.
It will not stop.
Sounds like a threat.
Because I specifically did not go after anyone.
And he really wonders why their criticism is legitimate. You know, isn't this what they were telling him? They're afraid. The priests were saying they're afraid of the behavior of his audience. And he's just trying to pretend that that's not a legitimate concern. But here he's saying, okay, we're going to go to war. I'm going to be blogging nonstop about you guys. In other words, he's going to try to pull all kinds of smut about them and make all kinds of accusations about them and dig up all kinds of dirt about them and present it and put it out there and effectively threatening these people. And he's telling it to you right there on camera. But then he really wonders where this criticism is coming from. Zero self-reflection. Zero self-awareness.
Did not go after any priest. Did not call out anybody. Get this, except the people that are our enemies. Right? The people that hate the church. The people that want to destroy the church. So I spent, the last 5 years debating Muslims, debating atheists, debating Protestants, debating Roman Catholics. And in terms of converting thousands of people to the Orthodox Church by God's grace, now these individuals are saying, you're doing more harm than good. You're causing pastoral problems. Stop bringing the young men to the churches. You heard it from them.
But that's not exactly what they said. But you can, again, see from just the behavior in this video where they're coming from. Imagine what he's doing off camera if he does this on camera.
What's the OCA stance on Ukraine? Well, I'm glad you asked, because as you can imagine, such bishops that are thus more and more aligned with the Democratic Party, they are quite obviously going to side with Joe Biden on the Ukraine. So there's your answer to that question.
Sounds like he supports Russia and what it's doing to the people of Ukraine.
Now, I'm not saying all of the OCA is bad. I'm not saying all the OCA sides with Joe Biden. I'm saying I've specifically named the people I'm talking about. And Father David Galloway is not spearheading. He's just been tasked by these people to explain and warn why I'm a bad person. So there's my response to that.
The guy who literally just threatened all the bishops and priests in the OCA, how he's just going to go off on them. The guy who just publicly threatened them and because they criticized him. Gee, I wonder why they said those things.
And anyone who wants to join in with that, let's go to battle. Let's do it. Let's go to war. I'll have a war. I mean,
I'm sorry, I got to hear that again.
You're going to call me out thousands of people to the Orthodox Church, but give lectures about why I'm a bad person, and the best you can come up with is that I'm mean. Let's do it. Let's have this warfare. I will continually stream. Let's get into some of the articles that talk about the history of Bishop Benjamin and that kind of stuff. Do you want to do that too? Would you like to do that? We could do that. I'll just keep streaming tomorrow.
Sounds like he's just trying to threaten them so that they stop criticizing him. So if you keep criticizing me, I'm going to start digging up dirt and streaming against you. And he wonders why they're criticizing him. But Orthodox bishops and priests, if you're watching, are you really going to let this guy threaten you like this? And are you really going to back away, tuck tail, and not say anything and warn the flock? My advice to you is speak the truth and warn your flock against wolves. And you know what? If they want to harass you and dox you and stuff like that, so be it. They're going to do it to you anyway, whether you say something or not. They will do it to you. So you might as well just do the right thing anyway.
Day after, I will not stop. You understand? I'm not going to stop. And you telling me that I'm mean is not going to guilt me into stopping. So I'm not buying your guilt trips. I'm not a bad person because I debate people. All right, so I'm going to do a separate stream here in a minute. We'll start that one right after this.
All right. Well, thank you, Dyer, for telling us about what's going on in Orthodoxy there. Before I let you go, I want to hear his song one more time. It's still stuck in my head. We got to hear it one more time before we depart.
And the means of production. Let me show you my means of reproduction.
Fetal self sprite.
Fetal self sprite? What does that mean?
Ballin'.
I know what ballin' is.
Like Joseph Stalin.
I don't think Stalin was ballin'.
Sexy little communist. Sexy little communist.
I like the pimp cane that he has.
Doing little praxis.
I wonder where he got it from. Maybe the Halloween store or something.
I seen you on my Instagram. You made it my Sinstagram. Sexy little socialist. You gon' make me Marxist. Big girls need their love too.
It's going to be stuck in your head all week.
You expose the big booty. Industrial complex.
Big booty, industrial complex exposed. Twerkers of the world unite.
The fact that he's sitting on a love sofa just makes this all the better. But I think that's what he normally sits on. It's not just for this video.
Damn. Twerkers of the world unite. Twerkers of the world unite.
I want to live forever.
Damn.
All right, there you go. Profound. Thank you for that, Jay. I needed that. That was excellent. Anyways, hope y'all enjoyed this. If so, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share this on your social media. Consider this again. If you are looking into Eastern Orthodoxy, just go in with eyes open, fully aware of what's going on. Don't go in with rose-colored glasses. Realize, you know what? Grass is not necessarily greener on the other side. So may want to reevaluate some things if that's where you're thinking about going. Anyways, that's going to do it. See you later. God bless. Hey, everybody. Just wanted to tell you about my new free ebook, Church Chaos, Biblical Insights for Confused Catholics. If you are a confused Catholic and you're thinking about leaving the Catholic Church, or you're thinking about converting to the church, but you see that there's a crisis in the church and you're just unsure, this is the book for you. Again, it is free. Just simply go to reasonandtheology.com. You'll see a pop-up that comes up on your screen. Just simply click on it and you'll put in your email and it will provide you the free PDF ebook right then and there. Please check it out if you're confused about the situation in the Catholic Church today. reasonandtheology.com.